Hello and welcome to another Imperfectly Perfect, Perfectly Imperfect Conversation for a Flourishing Education podcast. Today, I'm delighted to bring you listeners not one, not two, but three guests. And you'll know in a minute, I'll introduce you or I'll ask them to introduce themselves. Um, the reason I asked my guest to come is on Tuesday this week. I actually attended a meeting that was organized by my guest for the Freedom to Learn Forum. Um, and I really resonated with what was shared in the meeting, with the three amazing beings and souls I'm about to introduce you to. Um, and I just offered to hold an imperfectly perfect conversation with them because I've been watching Freedom to Learn for quite a while now as someone who's interested in education and decolonizing and all of the different initiatives. And watching from a distance, feeling like, oh, I'm not sure. Um, and so I attended the meeting and I really resonated and I could see how much work, my guests are sort of putting in to get the forum ready, which is happening in August. You'll hear more as we speak, but also to see how real and human they are, how much they live and breathe, like the values they've shared. So yeah, I wanted to give you an opportunity to get a little bit of a piece of what I got on Tuesday night. So a very warm welcome to the podcast, Ratna, Ling and Heidi. So shall we start with where I start with all of my guests, which is who are you? Where are you in the world? And can you tell us a bit more about you before we just talk about Freedom to Learn and the forum and everything else? So to help, because it's three of you, maybe I'll just sort of like go with like who I have on my screen. It might make it easier if that's all right. So Ratna, let's start with you. Could you tell us a little bit more about you?
What to say? I'm shifting a lot at the moment. I am in late stage perimenopause, mum of two, and unschooling from my kids unschool from the beginning. My eldest was very much said, why are they all in the cages? Where are the mummies and daddies? When he was about 3 years old, so he was very suspicious. And yeah, I think I had been um, sort of understanding more about children's rights through my old life of being a pediatric audiologist in the NHS and starting to think more about how we treat children in general in society. And so that sort of spurred me into, when I was pregnant, reading a lot about unschooling and then having quite a shock at my first sort of home ed meetings, realizing there was a much wider spectrum of home educating than just unschooling, and feeling a bit relieved because unschooling felt like such a high standard to sort of achieve, and the way I understood it then. And that has sort of become more real now in a way that it's just a lifelong process of deschooling and decolonizing. It's just ongoing awareness and reflection, and especially around the power dynamics and reverting to default patterns. So I feel like this is in constant flux. So that question, who are you, feels very like shifting ground. And yeah, and Freedom to Learn, being part of this project, has sort of feels like um, people on the same journey as you, or like people like feeling like not even on the same exact journey as you, but people in the same waters. They're like, you know, we're going round and round. Sometimes it's going forward, sometimes it's going backwards, sometimes just swirling around. And that, yeah, actually, when we're doing the website day, that ended up being quite a lot of the imagery that we had together. And that felt very apt because it just feels like you have companionship and like um, along the way, and also like a shared purpose and vision for like wanting more liberation and more equitable futures and more like ways of finding ways to live within modernity, and like one step in this world and the bridging to the next, what is going to be possible. Yeah, and seeing how many more of us can actually be sort of part of that together. Yeah, sorry, that was quite a long answer in the end.
It's beautiful. Thank you. So, Mei Ling, would you like to tell us a bit more about you?
I agree. Like Ratna, the "Who are you?" was such a kind of, oh no, that's an existential question.
In the moment, who are you right now, Mei
Who
Ling?
am I right now? I'm Mei. I live in East London. Ratna also lives in East London, but a different bit. We're like close, but not close enough, as is usually the way. And well, actually, I met Ratna through a learning community called Game Changers, where our kids were going, and then I think Ratna was involved with the whole creation of that community, and then I got involved later, and then we were both the ones left closing it down. And through being part of that learning community, that's how I found out about Freedom to Learn. And I came to my first forum, what is it, 3 years ago, I think. Yeah, this will be the fourth one. And it was such a lifeline for me to be around people who were trying to create sort of an unschooling thing, but in community. And in London, there are loads of home educators. Lots of them would call themselves homeschoolers, and we would not put ourselves in that category. So it was quite nice to be immersed in people who had a similar outlook on kids, and ultimately it came down to respecting children as human beings, and as part of that, also recognizing ourselves as human beings and being kinder to ourselves. So I have two kids who we've unschooled since the beginning, because we were really lucky to have met people before our kids were of school age who introduced us to these ideas. And then we realized, when they're little, it's much easier, I think, to kind of go, well, you're learning all the time. I don't have to do anything. When they get to more schooly ages, you sort of think, well, how are they going to learn this kind of stuff? But if you have a supportive community, it can be much easier to sort of trust the process. Yeah, and so I got involved in organising last year, and a bit before, because Freedom to Learn used to be part of a charity called Phoenix Education Trust, and when they were closing down, we were faced with this decision of would we try and keep the Freedom to Learn part going, because the Freedom to Learn part was all about the alternative education scene, whereas Phoenix also included how do we get more rights respecting practices into education, into the existing system. And we absolutely need that still. But Freedom to Learn was specifically about what are the alternatives that people are already creating, and how can we support them, and how can we network them together so that we can help each other. And so the forum has been this really amazing thing where loads of learning communities and other people on schooling and educators or researchers can get together and amplify each other, and feel connected and support each other and inspire each other. Yeah, and I didn't think that I would get involved with organising the forum itself. I thought I would be there to help the network keep itself going, and I kind of got sucked in, and it's slightly excruciating, but also really, really generative and a really rich experience. And especially with Ratna and Heidi and the rest of the organising team, it's been such an amazing learning journey. And if you're on a deschooling journey, it's like organising something together is definitely part of my deschooling and decolonizing practice. It really sort of steps it up a gear in a way that I hadn't anticipated.
Thank you. And Heidi.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Heidi. I am in southeast England. Southeast? Yes. West Sussex. I live in West Sussex. I'm here quite a long time, and I unschool my 4 children, and they've always been unschooled. But unlike Ling and Ratna, I didn't know about unschooling when we started. I just knew that my children weren't going to school because I'm a former teacher, and that kind of heavily influenced that decision, which we can talk about another time. And my eldest is now 19, so we've been doing this for quite a long time. And most of my life and who I am, I don't know. I've always been really, because of my teaching background as well, I've always been really heavily involved in education. And I guess my interest in freedom to learn, I went 3 years ago. So this year will be my 3rd year. I went 3 years ago, and I just went me on my own. I wasn't really sure about going. I didn't really know what to expect. I just think I'd got to a place in my own unschooling and kind of deschooling, having realised that deschooling goes on and on and on and on, where I wanted to connect with other people that were really really exploring the roots and the how this affects our relationships and how to live beyond our family unit, because I'm still am deeply connected to our home educating network locally, but there's such a breadth of beautiful families really, trying to navigate what school or learning looks like without school. But this feeling a growing need to be in community, I guess that's what it is, like long-term connections with people who are really exploring what that looks like, maybe outside of our families, in broader community, like how we connect with people locally, not necessarily home educators, but like neighbours, how this is going to work for my children as they get older, and bridging that gap between their experience and their life experience, and where do they go next? Where can they connect with other people that have similar lifestyles or thought processes or experience of the world, or even how do they bridge that gap into, if they need to or want to step into a more mainstream cultural setting. Anyway, it brought me to freedom to learn. I wasn't very sure the first year. I came on my own. My children didn't come. They're not really they're unschoolers. They're fully autonomous. They have opinions about what they want to do. They didn't want to come. So I came, and I lurked around the edges. So as a forum, like, we have this co-created kind of element where people can suggest a session, run a activity, have a conversation in a room, and I really lurked around. I was a lurker. I think in the open space kind of format that we use, they're called butterflies, actually. So I was a butterfly, and I kind of flitted from one thing to another. I didn't really commit to any one group. I didn't offer a session, and I loved it, and it felt really beautiful, and it felt like the sort of place where it was okay for me to do that, and that in turn meant that I came back and somehow ended up on the organising team. So in the course of 2 years, or in fact it was a year, in the course of a year, went from flitting and kind of just getting a sense of, is this the place for me? How does this work? Because it was really new to me, because I'm not from a learning community, so I hadn't got that experience of how that works on a broader scale with like multiple people together. I went from being a butterfly to, I don't know what the term is for someone who's turns up every week and shares their thoughts and ideas and adds some practical
It's so beautiful. I love what you've just shared, right? Like what I noted after hearing the three of you is me with community. So what I've heard as a similarity between all three of you is, so in a neoliberal capitalist society, we are taught in school, when we're schooled and socialized, that we are separate individuals who have to work really hard and sort of individuate and focus on me, myself, and I effectively. And, like you, Heidi, I'm a recovering language teacher. So that unschooling, deschooling means like, oh, maybe I'm not separate, right? Like, but it's what I heard in all of you. It's you're all unschooling. That means so many things, right? To different people, even like being a home educator, all of those terminology. And so how do we find that? This is something that, the reason I've been looking at freedom to learn and being inspired by what I'm seeing from a distance, but being maybe a bit more like you, like thinking, I'm not even sure I want to be a butterfly. I'll just watch from afar for now, initially, is because it's like, oh, is this going to be my community? Because I've tried many different things. I mean, like, Ling and Ratna, you've had to close down like organizations, right? So in that, there's some challenges and difficulties. So I think that me with community is what I saw and I resonated with when I came in on Tuesday. It's like the beautiful connection between the three of you in particular, because I know like your organizing sort of team is bigger, and there were volunteers that potentially were coming in, so new people and people who are also part of the team but were not really there at particularly at the beginning. So does that resonate, that sort of like me with community for you?
Absolutely, especially the vulnerability bit, because when you played that back, it was like, oh yeah, I mean, it's like a slightly more distant memory now, but the sort of the rawness and the realizing that there was no way that I as an individual could plow forward and make it happen or keep the organization alive. It needed such a wide community to support it, not just families who were able to come, like financial support, so, and also community support for the network of people who would then be there to show the young people things that their parents couldn't, because education can't happen with you alone. It's in relationship with your surroundings, with your environment, with people. And I echo Heidi's journey of like, when I came to unschooling, it was very much from this kind of, I look after my family kind of point of view. And then there comes a point where you realize that actually my family are fine, but then what? And where there's some kind of pollination that has to occur outside of your own family. And I think we're seeing in society as well, with the way things are going and the climate crisis and all the different I don't know, the culminations and the collapses that are happening, is that we can't survive this or thrive in this in any kind of way by ourselves. So there is a kind of survival imperative almost to learn how to be in community. And so, on a sort of an intellectual level, I'm like, yes, it makes sense to be in community. And then how to do that with neighbors who have completely different points of view, to have different worldviews. That's the challenge, right? Because it's easy when you're with people who you agree with. But how do you live amongst real people? Not the people that you just choose to connect with.
And like, sorry, Radna, go on. Because I was just gonna say, what occurred to me is Heidi was saying she was a butterfly lurking, and then she didn't know how to describe how. And by the way, you've all said, oh, initially I was like doing this, and then I came in and sort of like stuck in, and now I'm part of the organizing team, right? And Mei-Ling, you use the word pollination, and I wonder whether what happened is like from individual butterfly or whatever, unique ecosystem, to then sort of coming together to like do the pollinating. That's such a beautiful image to what I experienced on Tuesday. So I don't know, apologies, Ratna, you were going to say something, but I just felt like saying that because I think that's what I experienced, I resonated with, is that I felt for a long time this lonesome sort of weird insect in a world that's very mechanistic. And on Tuesday, you made me feel like I wasn't a weird insect, is how I would vocalize it. So thank you. And I'll let you come in and see what resonates for you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually I didn't come from it from my family first. I often do things upside down, other way around. And yeah, I was probably in the theory, as I am a lot in my head. My whole journey is trying to get more into my, body and experience. But I think because I had a taste of that as a child, and I have a very big family, and I lived in Kenya for a couple of years as a child, many adults, lots of children, caring. I was probably immune to what else was going on. So I feel like that sort of bigger collective society, I experienced that, and it's sort of imprinted on my brain. It's like that's a way to live that meets more needs for many of us. And yeah, and that was my privilege of having a bigger family in that time, and it still is. I still have that. And I'm often aware of that fact that, a lot of people don't have that wider network of extended people that can sort of, often there's so much difference in the family, like even amongst my siblings. So, with our worldviews, our everything. But at the crux of it, there's something that when push comes to shove, we are all there for each other. And we've seen that time and time again. So I feel very privileged and very lucky to have that. And so for me also, that drive is how can I sort of extend that to more people, that more people have that, because that's what's been systemically chopped away at. And that is what's going to disappear in my own family too. Culturally, language, all of this is going to sort of filter out over time. And I wonder how we can sort of support each other with sort of continuing family style networks, and we have the friction with our neighbors that you might have in a family, for example, with all that kind of difference that we all carry. But I feel like that is what these times are calling for, and the sad thing is that in the times of emergency crisis is when people do come together and forget about identity, and we can drop identity and actually connect heart to heart, and like, how can we connect on this level, and how can we support each other, so that's and I think that's what Freedom to Learn has helped with. And Heidi, Mei-Ling, we've been able to be very honest about all that kind of stuff that's in the background, like almost the sort of the processing time in real time of what is with us, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really value about our group, and it's more than us three, right, that are here in the room. I don't know if they want me to name check them. You can see them on our website.
Yeah, I was thinking that it is like, for me, that's really what it's become. It's us being together, and the forum has really been about us exploring and learning together what community actually means. And because we all have different experiences, like I don't have Ratna's experience, I don't have Mei-Ling's experience, and we're all bringing different things that maybe are barriers or trip us up, or that we're like kind of exploring or wrestling with. And to be in a space that says community is really important, but also the realities of what that looks like when we bring different capacities and different life experience and different backgrounds, but actually being part of figuring out how we make that work. So it's a bit chaotic, it's a bit messy, but one of the things I really feel that it's done, maybe for me personally, is kind of bring it all out of my head, and out of like, this is, we need to be doing this, and we need to be doing this, and it needs to be done this quickly, and it needs to be done in this way, is to bring it down into an experience of how does that land with each of us in the room, and what does that look like, and really taking time to think about, we're already in kind of alternative education, but what alternative ways can we do this, that there isn't a set way that this needs to look, that we can together as the group of people who are here, including like when we're at the forum, like what does that look like for us, and how does that work for us as a community of people who are coming together. And it's a really it's then really interesting to take that process and kind of translate it into where we are in other places that we occupy outside of freedom to learn, and to kind of developing those muscles, developing those skills, and then being able to maybe transfer them elsewhere as well. So it's a really beautiful, chaotic, a little bit messy, but it feels like a good place to be able to do those things, and to be able to kind of show up and like almost kind of be a little bit vulnerable, and say, this is how this is landing, or this is how I'm feeling today, and be in a place where that can be acknowledged and responded to, responsive. Anyway, I'm sure you get the idea.
And what you've just shared made me think of, so a lot of the work I've been doing for my PhD is around like space and time to be and become together. That's what I've been doing. And I've been sort of talking about or looking at the theory of like someone called Omi Baba, who sort of created this concept of third space. And this idea of third space where, it is very much linked to, for Omi Baba, of like people who've like multicultural sort of backgrounds who come, for example, to the UK, and then you have to, like you were saying, Ratna, language and culture that suddenly have to be, forgotten because of like the way European or Eurocentric ways of thinking, right? In terms of like one language, one way of being, supposedly. And as I was hearing you speak, like that space is, Omi Baba also talks about making the invisible visible, in a sense that it's about the culture in like society and a community and an environment. So, it's power, it's all of those things, but it's also true for the individual, right? Like everyone has, Heidi, you were saying, taking things in like my thoughts and putting them like out there, making them visible. So I also wonder whether like what I resonated with is how I could see that culture that you have created. So on the call, Mailing shared, and maybe Mailing might want to sort of to come in, or some of you, all of you, on like you shared like the principles or what you'd agreed in terms of like the culture of freedom to learn. And I really felt like sometimes I call that laminated values, like you walk as a teacher. I used to walk in the school and you've got those beautiful values on the wall and you're like, why is it I don't feel those values are like lived in terms of on the wall, but they're not experienced. I felt the complete opposite when I walked in the call. It's like what you put in the chat for all of us to say yes to, you clearly live and breathe, even though sometimes it may be challenging, like you were saying, because you might not agree with someone or something might happen that is more challenging. So again, does that resonate with you at all or not? Or would you want to add something to what I've just shared?
There's so much in that. I mean, the first thing that came to mind was that the labels are almost that I've jumped ahead of myself. The values are almost just labels that we put on afterwards, right? To give some kind of indication of where we're coming from. Because where we're coming from is really like I guess a form of equity. Like something that I've been reflecting on is how we're not just trying to make accommodations for people in order to be inclusive. We're actually willing to surrender our worldviews to some extent in order to see someone else's point of view clearly, and to be able to then come from this other place where their experience is true as well as our experience is true. And then what you do is completely different, right? But it's not coming from a I'm right and I'm accommodating you. It's okay, you live in a different reality to me. How do we keep staying with these differences so that we can, and I come back to the pollen metaphor, because actually, like, having highlighted that, Fabian, that was really cool, because it's like, oh yeah, because we might be the butterflies that help pollinate the flower, but the flower is not any individual. It's the thing that's created between us, amongst us, and it exists even kind of when we're not in the room, right? It's what we rely on, that then the glue that keeps us able to have conflict and still feel like it's safe enough to keep coming back and to keep working through it. Because there have been moments where we don't agree. And we have different styles, right, of how we approach that, and the different defaults that we end up like displaying when we feel vulnerable. Yeah, I can't remember what else you said, but that was my thing about how it's sort of like trying to create equity and the willingness of each one of us to not be right, or to hold our rightness more gently.
I think for me, my reflection is that it's just interesting to hear somebody who isn't in the midst of it to come in and be able to articulate that that's what they witness. It feels because I think when you are part of kind of the, we meet pretty regularly, and when you're part of it, you can never be sure that that is actually, I mean, that can be your aim, and we are always kind of still, tweaking those things and experimenting with what they look like and what that means, and digging further into what our practice is and how we're doing it. But it's interesting to hear someone come from the outside and say, I can see that this group reflects and embodies what it says it what it says it does. So I forget what your original question was.
I mentioned like that third space, like the making the invisible visible. And I guess in that, for me, it as someone who as a butterfly who sometimes feels like she doesn't really belong, she feels a bit weird. I don't do lurking very well, in a sense that I'd rather just be on my own. I find that easier. It avoids feeling like the hurt and a lot of the things that I've experienced, right? So I guess we all come with unless I'm very, very jealous of people who don't have the ACEs and the like the more traumatic or like trauma responses to life. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I could see the culture that you've created, and it's also back to mailing in the meeting shared. When I alluded to the laminated values, you shared. Maybe we could talk about that, like what you've agreed in terms of when you walk in this space, this is what we stand for. And then when I read that, I was like, that is definitely not a laminated value. That's definitely, I can really see that. And the way I could see that is how, for example, the ongoing conversation between mailing and you, Heidi, when you were saying something, like some of the comments, like it was peppered by like humor and laughter, and I remember Ratna was saying, oh, like the challenge with like, I can't quite see this, and like how there was a real willingness to make the space a safe space. Like I really felt as a newcomer, I'm welcome here. I didn't feel like so I'm sorry, again, I've given you loads. That's how my brain works. I apologize. But that's what it felt like for me.
So just to say, so the agreements that Fabienne is referring to, in organising last year, we wanted to come up with some sense of the culture, because I think most of us have been in spaces where we've relied on niceness and kindness to get us through. And actually, that can be incredibly harmful when something goes wrong, because people are triggered, and the dominant behavior kind of creeps in, right? No matter what your intention. And especially when you want to make a safe, when you want to make a space not what's the word, like a white supremacist space, you do have to do some kind of setting of, this is actually our intention here, and we're not stopping anyone from coming, but if you don't resonate with these values, then maybe you won't have the best time. And we're happy for people to come who feel like they don't agree with everything, because we like having these conversations. For all of us, it develops our own thinking, right? But so the agreements, we have, how many were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8, and we tried to make them as short as possible, because the forum is not just for old people, it's for young people, and it's for young at heart people. We want it to be accessible, and for some people their first language isn't English either. And I won't I shouldn't read them all out, right, because even though they're short, they're still long. But they include things like consent, and I mean, the first one is freedom in relationship, because we wanted to acknowledge that we are all individuals, and we want to be free. And also, we're never completely free. We're free in relationship with everything else. So that is a pretty critical one. And it's one that is common in alternative education. Like in any of the democratic schools, there's always this articulation of freedom with responsibility. You don't get one without the other. And similarly, like freedom to learn is not some kind of like idealistic bubble where we all come and escape from the world for a few days. There is an element of that, right? You are cushioned and you are insulated to some degree, but especially last year, I think, because of everything that's happening in the world, especially in the genocide in Palestine, we had Saleh come to provide Palestinian meals for us as part of a crowdfunding for him, and he also ran a couple of sessions, and it was really a deeply disruptive experience to, like, for my normal life. I'll only speak for myself, of the fact that where I am, I can choose not to think about all the people that are being killed, all the people that are being extracted from, and the land that's being extracted from, in order for me to have a safe and convenient life. And last year, I think for us was quite a wake up call of like, what do you really want to create? Do you really want to create some kind of bubble where you can escape for a while and then go back to being blind about it all? Or do you want to find a way to live with that complexity, live with your complicity, and still move towards freedom, move towards a collective freedom, and the joy that comes with that? Because that's like on another level, right, than the joy that you can have as an individual. Like if everyone actually was free to learn, that what would life be like? What would the world be like? Just completely fundamentally different. So I can't remember why I went off on that one, but you know, like, so, oh yeah, because of the values. So the values are the gateway into various depths of how deep do you want to go. Actually, that depth is really welcome here. I think that's what I wanted to say.
And I really like that. I think that depth, like the lived experience, like that culture that I resonated when I like felt it felt more energetic than actually, but also in action. That was really interesting. And I think what you shared here, Mailing, made me think of that word, real life. And what you said about sort of, Palestine and the genocide, and as a white accomplice, like I benefit so much from white supremacy, that I think there's something around finding spaces where we can have this conversation is really important in a safe and secure way. And I really felt that on Tuesday. But also being honest and being realistic. So the Tuesday was in part about organizing the forum, right? And when we organize things in life, in the material world we live in, right, like this, I'm sitting on a chair, there are practicalities for it to happen. And those practicalities, and I think this is what I also saw, is the rawness, the realness of, and your humanness of when you organize a forum like this, it takes a lot of time and energy, and it takes a lot of organizing. And you clearly, all of you, are so committed because of the words you've used, right? Like I went straight in and got stuck in and all of those things, right? So it's clear to me that you're doing such an amazing amount of work, like sheer volume of work, that all of you, that I just think, well, maybe that's also making that visible for me. And now I've made the decision that I'm not going to be the butterfly that's just fluttering like away because I'm scared. And what would it take for me to come in? And like, I guess holding the space and having this conversation is one way to just sort of like pollination, right? Like they do pollinating. And hopefully, Thomas, I'm coming with my eldest who's 18 and was deregistered for 3 years and is back in the system. We can also like come in and do more of that within the forum. But I wonder whether we could linger here and talk about that, like the practicality and the coming into this space that is quite, that can be cushioned, right? Like that's a beautiful space where we can create and, it's an unconference, right? So we organize conversations. But then there's this idea that there's life out there, like you go back to your life and all of those things. So I don't know what that sparks up for you.
I just want to say about the different ways of being, and then what what Mei-Ling was saying about Saleh's sessions, and I think the responsiveness of the forum. So practically that looked like people self-organizing a grief space after that session, people organizing a rage space straight after that session. So there was different responses to it, and also there was some friction in the way people handled grief. That was discussed. Some people are more personal with it. Some people, have more of a, this collective approach. And I remember I got that very wrong with somebody, and it was humbling. There was a lot of stuff that was humbling in the moment about, oh, my collective approach to something was very different to someone else's, approach, and sort of holding that space for a different sort of responses to things, but that people could do that if they wanted, whatever response they chose to engage in, that they could find others to do that or be on their own to do that, and I just wanted to say something about the safe and secure, because I just feel we can say safer, brave. I think sometimes we also use braver spaces because there are limitations, and language is limiting and the experience is limiting. So we experience those ruptures in the moment where it might not be something happens as we expect, which is, the natural part of being involved in something like this. So it is a bit of a, it does take some courage, I guess, to put yourself there. And as you said, like, Heidi coming multiple years, and a different step might be taken. And I think it's that sort of long-term vision, but also just realizing that there are limitations to anything, that we can't guarantee that everything will be there. As deep as you want to go, as willing people are to be vulnerable, there will still be things that happen. But it's more, how do we repair, how do we respond? And from your title, is it imperfect perfect or something? I can't remember which way around, but it's that we are trying, as Mei Ling was saying earlier, to challenge these defaults we have. That makes neoliberalism work so well, is staying in those defaults, and perpetuating that. But in these spaces that actually, not saying it's all rupture and grief and rage, but it's also the complexity, but it's not missing, as I'm saying. It's not all like, a lot of home-ed camps or different spaces are like a joyfulness of being together, which we love, but also, not the escape, that we can meet what is happening within people at that level too.
What I'm hearing in what you've shared is both and. So like the both and, as in like the practical, and also like the intellectual and the theoretical, and the home life and other communities, and the forum, right? Like both and the perfect and imperfect. So like maybe what I sense, and this is something that it's interesting you use the expression safer and braver spaces, because that's what I call the podcast. So like imperfectly perfect conversation, to co-create braver and safer spaces. So maybe I resonated energetically to that, right? Like it's also that. But I love what you've just said, because it's sort of like it's the thing of life, right? Like the both ends, the fact that it's sometimes it's fun, and like that you need one to know the other, I guess.
One of the things I really love about freedom to learn and the forum is that it is this space where you don't, it just piggybacking off of what Ratna says, you don't have to turn up and be enthusiastically gung-ho for how amazing life is all the time because you're living this alternative life and you're unschooling, or your children are free to learn in a different way. We don't turn up in this kind of like Instagram image of ourselves. Like we can just relax into it's okay here to step out and have a cry, or I don't know, go and paint a picture. If you want just some time to go and do something creative, but what that does is opens up this opportunity to witness other possibilities and how other people are in the world, and to begin to see the reality of other people's lives, and then that in turn can have an impact on how you show up. I mean, it could change how you want to do grief. You could go, I've never witnessed someone doing that before. I've never seen that. I've never seen grief held in community. I didn't know that's what it was, or that's how it could look like. And it can just open things up for you, but it also opens up to just lots of beautiful moments in conversation, or with other people, or walks, or offering sessions that explore something that has arisen during that time, rather than this kind of planned events. Like, we don't have a plan, like we haven't planned a schedule now. We don't know what our 4 days together are going to look like in terms of the discussions that I have, the sessions that will come together, the things that will be created. We normally have like a maker space, so people can come and make and create things. The places and spaces that will become an anchor or important within the place where we are. And it's really special. It's really special to be able to organically come together and grow, and I think before you said like weave together our different, whoever turns up, because we don't know we're not a set group of people who turn up every year and thrash out the same agenda and the same, things. And there's something really, really special about that, really beautiful. I think I've said beautiful a lot in the last during our recording.
Well, and I definitely sense that, like when I attended the call. So hence the invitation to come and have this conversation. And I'm conscious that I've asked you loads of questions and shared what I resonated with. And I wonder whether you're sitting here thinking, oh, I so wish Fabian had asked us this, so we could share a bit more about the forum, that in a way, or like, freedom to learn in a way that you feel you may not have had the opportunity to share. So any other things you may want to add that I've not asked or mentioned?
I have something, if that's okay. Something that just kind of instantly came to mind is that one of the primary reasons we all come together is because of our initial connection through education alternatives, learning ecosystems, but really heavily young people's rights and young people's active participation in that it's not something that's done to them, that they are actively involved in that. And that is something that we aim to reflect in the forum as well. So as it stands, I don't know if people saw this, but as it stands, 50% of our tickets thus far are under 21s, and under 21s are welcome to attend for free. And there is an intentional culture that allows, I hate the word allows, sorry, that welcomes young people to be active participants in that space as well, whether that's with their own thing going on, or like the interaction between the community in all ages. And when you asked that question, that I thought, I'm not sure we've mentioned young people enough, when it is quite a driver, like a central part of us coming together, and our ideas, I don't like that either, around how we value and include, like not even include, because it's not us including them, it's just, they are part of a really considered and intentional part of us coming together.
I was just going to add, thanks Heidi for covering that, like the young people participation aspect. But I was just also going to say that I think just something that somebody last year sort of noticed, that there's a bit of a shift, I guess. And we've sort of been talking about the word reciprocity and like this give and take, and also with our relationship to the actual place, the land. And the place that the forum is at this year is at the Beeches in the Peak District, and they're a community also doing lots of different projects around land justice, education justice, and environmental justice, I think. I can't remember. So it's just like that the place where it's at. In the past, it's been learning communities, and last year it shifted to the Beeches places. So again, it's sort of like broadening it out across different areas, I guess, like linking things together. And I think, yeah, there's yeah, I'll leave it at that actually, because I was going to go off in quite a big tangent, so I won't do that. I caught myself.
I wanted to add that that's the thing, right? Because as adults, we have so much inner work to do, and it absorbs a lot of my attention, right? Because actually, my young people seem so kind of happy and content, and so I kind of take that for granted, right? That they'll have a good time, but that people who are outside of the forum who haven't been will not have seen that. And so I wanted to mention the food, because last year I got involved with the food, partly because I just thought my children won't eat any of that stuff. And if it's supposed to be something where my children will actually enjoy themselves, food is a really critical part of that. And so we collectively decided we'd have this idea of this food bar where we would provide various different items that were not combined, so that you could create your own meal out of them. And there would be things that most young people in this country would be happy eating. But I was also almost sort of aggressively asking people to really be clear about what the young people's preferences were, because I know there are things that we kind of think, oh, it's a nuisance, or it's too awkward for you to have to deal with. And I really didn't want that to be the atmosphere that we had young people there in. It's like, actually, even your most ridiculous, in inverted commas, preference is something that we would love to accommodate if we can. And I know that's a big culture shift, right? To be able to share your picky eater, to share their preferences and not feel some kind of shame around it or something. So we try and encourage, and a bit more gently, that people share the preferences. If things like one of my children will eat bacon with peas, and that's not a normal combination. Like, just streaky bacon with peas. It's like, okay, how can we make that possible for other kids to have? Let me think of, probably got any examples of, like, oh, on this day, like, I'll publish the menu in advance, the draft menu, and then people can say, actually, on that day, on that meal, there's nothing that my child will eat, or even that I will eat, like, because we have people with quite severe and various allergies. Please, can you think about adding this other thing? And people will recommend brands that they know are safe for them to eat. And so we switch all of that and just try and make it as inclusive as possible. And I think that's quite different, right, to most places, because most places are like, this is the food. Please do what you can with it. And I've found that for families, that means that a lot of your time gets taken up catering for your children. And then you miss out on the communal eating. You miss out on being able to join in as many sessions. And so we co-create the food so people can volunteer to be involved in that. So then you get to have nice chat. Lots of really good chat happens when you're chopping vegetables, cutting carrots into batons and carrots into batons to make sure they're always there at every meal. So it becomes this lovely thing that you're not doing alone. You're included, and your child doesn't feel like that their meal is some sort of anomaly and that they're odd in some way. It's just that we all have different preferences. So, yeah.
I love that. So anything else you might want? I like that expression, lurking butterflies, or butterflies that are just like just there thinking, oh, that sounds really cool. So when I share the podcast, I'll put the link to the website, or like the to book or to be part of the forum. Feel free to share anything else you want, like in terms of links and stuff. But is there anything else we've not discussed that you might want to sort of add?
Well, I quite like to share a really personal thing, actually. Sorry, Ratna, do you want to go first?
I was just a practical thing that that it's not just a camp. There's an indoor building as well, so there's indoor and outdoor spaces, and yeah, there will be like quiet spaces, and yeah, that's going to be set up so we try to accommodate different preferences and needs. And I know sometimes camping isn't the most accessible thing for people. It's something that we're looking at, but yeah, just to get in touch with us if there are any access needs, or if you have if it works better for you to be sleeping on a bed indoors. Yeah.
Last year in the reflection session, one of the participants shared that they wanted to reflect on I worded it so much better earlier. I can't think of the wording, like what would it take for them to see freedom, the forum, as something important so that they would prioritize it. And when they said that, in me, it triggered this thought of like, what would it take for me to belong in the Freedom to Learn network and the forum? And I thought that was fascinating, right? Because I'm involved in organizing. So you would assume that I felt like I belonged, or that I knew what it was. And in our previous discussion to this call, it is a common theme amongst even most of the organizers that we all feel judged in some way, or like we're not the right person, or that we're not not as far along in our journey as we should be, or whatever, we're not the right ambassador for whatever it is that we're in some way promoting. And I just thought that was really interesting, that there's this constant, there's a sometimes constant feeling that you feel like you're not quite right, or you don't quite belong. And I wanted to highlight that because I feel like that must be a systemic thing rather than an individual thing if we're all feeling it. But I wanted to share also this reflection that I had on it sometime after. So I put this question out to myself of, what would it take for me to feel like I belong? And I didn't really get an answer exactly to that question, but I did get a feeling, which is that I think I can be myself this year, which was really interesting. It's like, oh, I think this place is the kind of place where I can be myself. And I just think that's really magical, right? Like if everybody felt like they could come and actually be themselves, like what would the collective magic look like then? And so my invitation to people would be like, what if you could come and really be yourself? Like, what could happen?
I think that's going to make the beautiful title of this podcast, to be fair, because that's a very good title. And I'm hearing that actually your girls already are. Unlike us adults.
They don't have to work on it, right? Oh, no, that's not true. That's not true, because they're learning like the systemic other ways of being, and I see them navigating that amongst their friends of like, how can I be upfront with my boundaries? How can I communicate how I feel about this and not alienate you as a friend? How strong is our bond? So they're doing exactly the same thing. And
isn't that more becoming though? Isn't that more the becoming piece? Because you can be first and then become, like the flowing. I don't know. I'm just sort of curious as I'm hearing you speak. It's like if you're really truly grounded in who you are as a unique individual, then you can be, and then therefore you can become, right? Like through the flowing with the others and decide, like you rightly pointed at the beginning of the conversation with my question, who are you? Well, we're not fixed because we've all been changed. I was changed by coming into the call with you on Tuesday. I'm sure listeners might be changed or not through this conversation. So I don't know. I wonder whether those are the things that emerged from me as I heard you speak. It's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, what I hear is, oh yeah, we're putting all of this effort into the soil, and then you lot all come and you plant yourselves and you blossom. And what an amazing privilege it is to have been part of that creation.
Beautiful. Anything else you would like to add, Ratna and Heidi, before we wrap up? And I thank you for your time and your energy and everything. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm very grateful to you for, Tuesday and for this. It's been really great. So thank you for saying yes to this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on Tuesday.
My pleasure.